Chapter 16 of The Ghosts of Tupelo Landing. Footnotes from Charleston. Friday evening, as I sat in my room contemplating the evils of fractions in general and common denominators in particular, my vintage bedside phone jangled. "Mo's flat, Mo speaking," I said. I possess killer telephone skills. "Is this Mo LeBeau of Desperado Detective Agency?" a man asked. "That's right. Your life disaster is our pleasure. How can we help?" "This is Cousin Gideon, Esquire." I laughed. "Cousin Gideon, how are you?" "Fine, sugar. I hope you are. I just got your ski mail. It sounds like big goings-on in little Tupelo Landing." "Huge," I agreed. "Dale and me hope to bring you on board as a footnote for our ghost case." He laughed, liquid and slow. "I am scared to death of ghosts, sugar," he drawled, "but have an absolutely intrepid, brave friend who investigates haunted places for a living. I showed her your questions, and I have her answers here. Got a pencil handy?" "Shoot," I said, turning a page in my notebook. "First, my friend prefers film cameras to digital ones. Ghosts generally show up like orbs of light." My heart skipped. "She also suggests setting up a voice-activated recorder in the inn at night. I know Lana has one because I gave her one for Christmas years ago. It's so old it uses tapes, but it should work just fine." I shivered. Ghosts talk to each other at night? Well, I'm no expert, but I don't see any reason to stop chatting just because you're dead, do you? Cousin Gideon is a notorious chatter. "I saw that tape recorder in Miss Lana's doodad drawer the other day," I told him. "Did your friend mention seeing ghosts? Because Mr. Red says he'd seen them, and Lavender's workers claim ghosts move their tools. And Dale and me have heard things and seen a possible glimmer." Tap, tap, tap. Cousin Gideon taps his pen against his teeth when he's thinking. A bad habit. "Well, she says some people see ghosts and others can't. Others hear them or smell them. She didn't mention moving things specifically, but I suppose they can. I mean, they have a reputation for that kind of mischief, don't they?" "Right. Thanks, Cousin Gideon," I said, jotting a few notes. "This makes dynamite background." I made an executive decision. "In fact, I'm awarding you full footnote status. Congratulations." "Miss Lana says people can hear you smile into the phone." She's right. I could hear Cousin Gideon beaming. "Appreciate it, darling," he said, and then hesitated. "You be careful with this stuff, Mo. You know what they say, fools rush in where angels fear to tread, and you're no fool, Mo Lobo." "I ain't much of an angel either," I said, and he laughed. "Come see me, sugar. Now, if Lana's nearby, I'd love to hear her voice." An hour later, I pushed open the inn's door and tugged Miss Lana's tape recorder from my pocket. I crept across the lobby, Dale following so close his toes snigged at my heels. "If Mama learns I snuck out, she'll kill me." "Don't look at the chandelier or at the stairs," he whispered, putting his hand on my shoulder. "Or the piano." I stopped, and he slammed into me. "Open your eyes, Dale," I snapped. "I ain't a seeing-eye friend." I tiptoed behind the reservation desk, clicked the recorder on, and put it under Lavender's dust mask. "We'll come back in the morning to see who we caught chatting." I took Dale's cold, clammy hand and led him to the door. The next morning, I called Dale the instant I opened my eyes. "Wake up," I said. "Saturday morning, ghost tape," he replied and hung up. The tape recorder sat right where we left it. Only one thing had changed. "It's nearly full," Dale said. Ghost voices on tape. Proof. Automatic A. The skin on the back of my neck crawled. "Let's hear it," I said. He backed up, shoving his hands behind his back. "I don't touch ghost things. It's a rule. Fine. I hit rewind, then play. We leaned toward the recorder, straining to hear. First, scrabbling. "Ghost fingers," Dale whispered. "Or mice." Then footsteps. My mouth went dry. "Ghost shoes," he whispered. A man's voice jumped out at us. "Will you look at this?" "Ghost!" Dale cried, grabbing my arm. I yanked free. The voice sputtered, and I heard something heavy slide across the floor. Then, "Where's that hammer?" "Ghost with a hammer," Dale breathed. "Bad." "Looks like they replaced that window glass again. Idiots." "Hold on, Dale," I said, frowning. I know that voice. Pop, pop, pop. That's Red Baker popping his knuckles like always. And that's his hateful old voice. "No," Dale whispered. I leaned closer to the recorder. "He's dragging something," I said. I looked around the inn at a faint double track across the heart pine floor. "A stepladder," I said, glancing at the ladder propped against the wall. On the tape, faint footsteps scuffed up the ladder's steps, then a sharp whack. I looked at the parlor window. A crack zigzagged across its face. A wave of anger nearly swept me off my feet. I jabbed the recorder, turning it off, and stared at Dale. "You know what this means, don't you?" "Yes," Dale whispered. He collapsed onto the stairs and rested his forehead against his palms. He drew a jagged breath. Poor Dale. He'd known Red Baker all his life. Now this. I sat beside him. "Are you okay?" I asked, trying to sound sensitive. He looked up at me, his blue eyes glistening. "I think so. It's just shocking is all. I mean, Red Baker. He looks so lifelike." "Lifelike?" Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to live in Dale's world. Other times I think I wouldn't last 5 minutes in there. He is lifelike, Desperado. He's alive. "Right," he said, sagging with relief. "I think so too." I hopped up and paced, my hands behind my back. "We ain't got ghosts, Dale. We got Red Baker tricking us. And you know what that means, don't you? We're failing history again?" "It means we're on the verge of solving a major crime," I said. "We need backup." Detective Joe Starr blasted through the cafe door a half hour later. He's dark and handsome in a plainclothes cop way, but I still think Miss Retzel could do better. "What's wrong?" he demanded, looking around the empty cafe. Miss Lana looked up from her recipe book. "Well, I'm thinking of going vegetarian on Tuesdays, which I suppose some people could see as wrong. What do you think?" "You're more of a meat and potatoes man, I believe." "True. Joe Starr's a carnivore, tooth and nail." "Pris said you have an emergency," he said. He zeroed in on me, and his hands went to his hips. "You," he said. "Good afternoon, detective," I replied, very professional. "Allow me to compliment you on your response time." He waited, his sleek gray eyes unsmiling. "The Desperados have solved another major crime, and we'd like you to make an arrest. Lavender's waiting for us at the inn. There's just one more person we need to notify." "And without him, we're pretty much dead," Dale added. "True." I dialed. Fortunately, Mr. Red picked up. "This is Mo Lobo of the Desperado Detective Agency. Miss Lana's selling the inn," I said. "Meet us there in half an hour." I hung up before he could get a word out. 20 minutes later, Red Baker ambled through the inn door and froze. Detective Starr simmered by the window. His arms crossed. Miss Lana perched on a sawhorse, filing her nails. Lavender leaned against the desk, looking good in corduroy. "Thanks for dropping by," I said. He edged back toward the door, bumping into Harm. "I didn't drop by. I came because you said Lana's selling the inn. Why is Starr here?" I pulled the tape recorder from my pocket. "First, Dale and me got something we'd like you to hear." I pressed play. His gravelly voice flooded the room. "Left their tape measures out again. Idiots." Pop, pop, pop. Miss Lana stood up. "Sabotage," she said, her voice drizzling scorn over the word. I turned off the tape. "There's more," I said. "Moving tools, breaking that window." I gave Starr a detective-to-detective smile. "We'll turn our evidence over to you and prepare a press release, including the correct spelling of our names." Starr slipped the recorder into his pocket. "If you have an explanation, Mr. Baker, this would be a good time," he said. Mr. Red shrugged. "Don't know what you're talking about." "That's your voice and your popping knuckles," Lavender said. "We know it, and a jury will know it." He glared at Harm. "And what's your role in this?" he demanded. "No wonder you wanted a job. Talk about easy access to your crime scene." Harm's mouth fell open. I'd seen him fake surprise in class, but this looked real. Mr. Red stepped in front of Harm. "I'll pay for your darned window," he said. "Leave Harm out of this." "Who are you talking to on that tape?" Starr demanded. "Myself," Mr. Red growled. "I'm an old man." Interesting. Maybe Red Baker does care about Harm, I thought. He shoved Harm toward the door. On the other hand, maybe he doesn't. "What about the rest of it?" I asked. "What about the footsteps upstairs?" "Don't know what you're talking about," Mr. Red said, heading for the door. Starr reached for his handcuffs. "I take it you'll press charges, Lana? Take your pick. Malicious mischief, breaking and entering, harassment, trespassing. Mr. Baker, this way to the patrol car." Harm swallowed so hard I could hear him from across the room. Miss Lana's eyes went softer. "I'd like to talk to Lacey Thornton first, if you don't mind. She's home today, a little under the weather." "Let's go see her then," Starr said, glancing at Harm. "Stay where I can find you," he said. "If Mr. Baker goes to jail, we'll make arrangements for you." "Arrangements," Dale mumbled under his breath. "Bad." Starr walked Mr. Red to the Impala, Lavender and Miss Lana trailing behind. That left me, Dale, and Queen Elizabeth, plus Harm and an accusing silence. The Impala pulled away. "Your getting left on your own is an unseen consequence of our good detective work," I said. "It wasn't part of our plan." "Same as Daddy staying in jail so long," Dale said. Harm shrugged, walked to the piano, and opened the keyboard. "It's not the first time I've been left. I always land on my feet." "Just between us, how did Mr. Red do the rest of the haunting?" I asked. Harm stretched his hands across the piano keys, and a soft chord rippled through the silence. Cold flooded the room. He spun to face us. "What the? Like, how did he rig that?" Dale asked, snuggling into his sweatshirt. Harm looked around the room. "How did he deep freeze this dump?" he said, crossing his arms and shivering. "He didn't. How could he?" "And what about her?" Dale asked, pointing to the staircase. "How does Mr. Red make her happen?" "Who?" Harm and I asked together, turning. My heart jumped like a racer out of the blocks as a swirl of pale pink light wandered down the stairs to the piano. It hovered, then sailed straight for Harm. Harm's thin face went gray as a raw plaster wall. He backed, braced, backed away as the pink moved closer, closer, and churned to a halt, inches from his face. Red Baker didn't concoct that. I grabbed my camera and pointed it with shaking hands. "She's gone," Dale said, looking around the room as the mist faded and the temperature rose. "What was that?" Harm demanded. "Our history interview," Dale said. "She acted like she knew you." "Knew me? That's crazy." Dale looked Harm up and down. "Ghost bait," he said, his voice thoughtful. He looked at me. "I told you we'd need some." And Harm sat down on the floor, hard.